feel that you arm them by sort of, in their language, dead naming Elliot Page. And I feel like why would you do that? It isn't necessary. It isn't necessary. Of course, it's the statistics you've cited about the Tavistock Clinic appear to speak for themselves. Is there a way that we can...
See, this is why. Because you'll get it on... Like, if you walk away from this, and you're someone who's a fan of Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson, the walk away is going to be like, oh, Jordan hurt Russell's feelings. Russell Brand just thinks you shouldn't be mean to people and hurt their feelings. That's all there is to it. But it is really, really scary. It's really scary that there is this kind of social contagion indoctrination by the big trans ideology that is effectively trying to destroy kids' lives. And I'm really scared about that. But honestly, I feel bad for Russell because his feelings got hurt, you know? The biggest debate of all time is going down. They're going to debate a couple of cis guys debating about gender ideology.
Stay free.
Oh, yes. My beautiful brightening wonders.
With me, Russell Brand. The thing that I wanted to start with, given Elon Musk's recent takeover of Twitter, is whether he is a distinct and discrete category of billionaire. How is he different? How is he the same? And how will Elon Musk's position at Twitter alter your...
Again, Russell Brand, by the way, if you haven't figured him out, enlightened centrist, without a very... well, let's just say an incredibly limited understanding of material conditions, material analysis, class consciousness, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have any of that. To him, he's kind of just figuring stuff out as he picks up kind of like fortune cookie slogans. As he sees them, he reads them, and then he's like, oh, that's a funny thing. Okay, you put that one there. Oh, there's another funny thing. Okay, we got that there. But you'll always notice that when he speaks about these kind of things, he'll be like, is this the problem with capitalism, or is this the problem with a certain kind of capitalism? You sound out from the comments here, you what?
Position on Twitter.
Well, that remains to be seen. I'm still banned, so that hasn't changed. I mean, he's suggested that he might reinstate Trump. Whether or not that means he'd reinstate me is a matter of question. It isn't obvious to me that the people who run the social media networks know exactly how to regulate them with any degree of utility. You know, I've probably read 100,000 comments online, or maybe more, and I've tried to read them with a psychologist's eye. And there are some things going on.
Wait, how does that work? Allow me to affix my psychologist's eye. What would Jung have thought?
Online that are, I think, that actually pose a threat to the integrity of the culture itself. The biggest problem that I can see is that the large online platforms allow anonymous troll demons to rampage through society with no cost to themselves. And I can identify these people quite accurately now.
It's great. The first time he's done this, I'm being called out in real time. Jordan Peterson blocked me because he took a photo where he's trying to be a big old strong dude, and he's got a gun, and he's shooting at a target because, again, he's a big strong man who's got a big old gun. And then I replaced the target with just a picture of apple cider. It was very rough. It's not a great Photoshop job, not my best work, and then I just posted that as a reply. And he blocked me. So I suppose I would be what he considers to be an anonymous troll demon who gets to operate without recourse. That's yeah. I can add that to my bio. Anonymous troll demon.
This will make a number of the people who are watching and listening.
Oh, other people use my meme to get blocked by him as well. I don't see why. Why is his skin so thin? That one's I've posted way meaner stuff to Jordan. I posted stuff that I thought I was being ruthless because I was trying to go after his transphobic ass hard. But then there's that cider meme. I just thought it was silly, you know. But then he took away my free speech.
Uncomfortable because they'll be in the list of people who do this sort of thing. So the first thing is they have an anonymous name. The second thing is the anonymous name usually has something psychologically significant about it in a very negative.
Oh, wow. I feel like he's talking directly to me. Maybe I've got POV syndrome. It could be that. Everyone does, you know, especially streamers. They've got very big POV syndromes. But it's just every single person who he's ever blocked or gotten under his skin, you know, he's just like, oh, look at this. Who is this individual? It says it's two individuals. He, him, pronouns. Oh, blast pronouns. It hurts. Mother, help. Oh, what do we see? Lance of the Serfs. You would post a picture of my one mortal enemy. Did you not hear what Cider did to me? I have a medical condition. How could you? I banish you with the power of block. Oh, it's a good day. Where's Grandma?
Direction. So it's self-denigrating, or it's demonic, or it's otherwise offensive, and purposefully so. And then the people who are utter cowards, likely to be narcissists and Machiavellians, resentful people sitting in their basement at home, dwelling on their misery. And
I'll have you know, this is not a basement. I'm in an apartment, so I'm actually rised into the sky, so it wasn't from a basement. That would have been apropos had it been in my previous one, because in that one I was actually streaming out of a closet. The times were a bit tougher, but yeah. So that
doing everything they can to spew toxicity out into the world, alone in their bedrooms, they're just isolated people who aren't.
I can't tell sometimes if he's reading. It looks sometimes like he's got a little note prompter of what he wants to say to make it the most impactful, you know? These anonymous troll demons, collectively sweating in their basements, their flesh pink and ripe for me to lick.
Causing any trouble. But as soon as they multiply themselves millions of times using this incredible, powerful computer technology, they're not even human anymore. In my estimation, they're literally a demonic force. And I mean that in a technical sense, right? You and I aren't exactly you and I in this conversation, because we're amplified hundreds of times or thousands of times or hundreds of thousands of times. And so we're not just human, we're androids in some sense, operating in a virtual space. And these online...
I love how it cuts to Russell, who's like...
trolls have that power because they have access to an audience that they would never gather by their own merits. They are saying things that...
This is why they all turned on Jordan Peterson. Okay, so he's finally clicking into things that if you have a social media account and your account is huge, that yes, you have a massive platform. And guess what? People with massive platforms should be held to certain standards because they can use their massive platforms, as we've all discovered, for very bad and or dangerous things. That's, yes, Jordan, congratulations. You've grown ever so slightly. Welcome to 2022, the year of our Lord.
Are derisive and inflammatory, and that would absolutely 100% get them punched if they ever said it in public. Imagine that there's
I also forgot what a strong dude he is. Yeah, because he's always like, "Oh, I would smack you. I would punch you if I had the opportunity. I would slap you upside the head, teach you a lesson or two with my brush."
A hierarchy of unconstrained people, and there's a variety of people who are very unconstrained, but in normal social discourse would be able to keep themselves under control because of the controls that are there in normal social discourse. You lift those controls and they just go off.
Wow, it's kind of as if people feel a little bit safer behind the anonymity of the internet, and that it's a huge problem if those same people are allowed to grow, say, hate speech networks to very large sizes, and then are on mainstream platforms saying their hate speech. Say someone like Nick Fuentes, who wants to dabble in Holocaust denial and stuff like that, probably should be a system in place for us to be able to restrict their power to grow utilizing these platforms, because again, they are utilizing them for incredibly dangerous means. Welcome, Jordan Peterson. Welcome again to 2022.
And so that's what we're seeing online. And that has to be...
And this all stems from him being like, these people were saying mean things to me. I had to analyze over 100,000. And what I came to the conclusion of was that they are demons. All of them are demonic. Satan.
Stopped. I think the large tech companies should be required to put in know your customer laws. They should ban anonymous accounts, but in this way. Imagine that you have a section for comments where it's real human beings that are verified, and you have another section underneath that's for anonymous troll demons. And if you want to go...
You mean the exact thing it happened. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, what are you describing? Oh, it's Twitter. You're describing Twitter.
Go visit their hell and see what their resentful minds are spewing into the public landscape, then you can. Otherwise, you stick to the real human beings. And I don't know if Musk and the other people who are running the big social media networks understand the pathology that's associated with this online commentary well enough to control it. So we'll see.
What I would like to draw your attention to, still sort of within the broad rubric of looking at Musk's acquisition of Twitter and how that may play out and how it may affect you personally. I was myself struck with, like, I think the tweet that you were banned for was sort of like commenting on Elliot Page. How do we prioritize compassion, kindness, love? And can't this basic palette of principles prevent us from getting into conflict around these ideas?
Well,
oh my God, I found it. I made it into an article of the Daily Dot, so I can show you the meme that got into the 1984 cancel culture me. Clean your room is no longer a request. Jordan Peterson burned over dopey tactical photo of him at a gun range. So this is the original picture. Cool. And then as you scroll down, you can see some other people have done some kind of, you know, some memes, people being like, hey, there's me. This was enough to be blocked by Jordan Peterson and forever known as a demon. I'm a satanic demon. Look what I've done. Look what I've created. My God.
It isn't obvious to me that love can be reduced to compassion at all, because for a variety of reasons. First of all, I think love is a multidimensional virtue, and there's many other virtues than compassion. Think about it this way, Russell. Imagine that the purest expression of compassion is the love of a mother for a true infant. We could really think about that as true compassion.
It's so very weird. It's so unbelievably weird that he's just like, okay, so I know how to measure love, and this is the truest form of love, and that is the love of the mother for the daughter. That's the truest form. And then after that is the love for the mother for the son, and then after that comes the love of the father for the daughter, and then the love of the father for the son. After that it becomes the aunt, and then at a certain point we get to grandma and her pubis. But along the way there are different forms of love.
Compassion, 100% compassion. And the reason for that is that if you have an infant from birth to, say, 6 months old, nothing the infant does is ever to be questioned. The proper response to the infant is, whatever the cause of their distress, you immediately prioritize its reduction. But then as the child starts to develop, and as soon as it becomes capable of its own voluntary movement, as soon as it becomes ambulatory, its nervous system starts to change, of course. But then there are other elements that have to be introduced into the relationship to make it a relationship of proper love. And some of that's judgment, which is often considered antithetical to compassion, and some of it's encouragement. And encouragement.
I feel like we got clickbaited because we're almost halfway done, and it says you had a heated gender debate. You've asked him 2 questions and he's responded in absolute and complete gibberish. That's what this clip has been so far, Russell. Methinks you did doth a clickbait, unless it's going to ramp up right around here.
Has a fair bit of judgment in it, because when you're encouraging someone, you're not exactly being compassionate for who they are. You're doing what you can to facilitate who they could be. And what you're doing constantly when you're encouraging someone is prioritizing who they could be over who they are. And that's an element of judgment. And that judgment, you might say, if you're not thinking about it precisely from the religious.
If you've got a really weird like worldview where it's basically like my children will be shaped in my image and they have to turn out exactly like me, then yeah, I guess that would fit into that. I mean, if you were like, I'm going to work really hard to make sure that I have a daughter who is obsessed with only eating meat and salt, and that is basically the course that we have to do. So everything I'll do is basically to train her to become that. It's totally normal to basically try and protect your children. It's totally normal to basically try and instruct your children. It's totally normal to try and impart information and knowledge to your children. But I mean, ultimately, they are going to become their own people. You try to help out as much as you can along the way.
Perspective is your own ability to decide which parts of you should go. Then the question is, are you compassionate for who you are? Or are you compassionate for who you could be? And the second is just as important, or maybe more important.
And when that's applied to the self, I can see that the requirement for this judgment, the great success you've had in, clean your room, stand up straight, these kind of edicts offered to young men or young people who require discipline.
Oh, it's young men. But yeah, you came up with the things that every single self-help guru has been saying throughout the history of the genre. It's like you pick up any self-help book because the advice is true. It's sometimes self-evident, but yes, if you have a clean room, if you exercise regularly, you can improve your quality of life and you will feel better. And these are good activities and you should participate in them. You're not like a super genius for thinking of clean up your room. By the way, you don't even follow your own advice, by the way. I've seen your room sometimes, sir. It is disgusting.
I can see the success of that. But Jordan, I feel that when it becomes an outward strike of like, this person should not have done this thing, this is the impact these actions will have on the culture, this will lead to this kind of denigration, this will lead to decisions that
Oh, Russell. Oh, you poor enlightened hippie. Are you just discovering that he's actually a hardcore right-wing conservative and that he packages the self-help guru stuff in such a way that you think he's just trying to impart knowledge upon people, but it turns out he's got some really hardcore right-wing beliefs, as in he hates trans people, absolutely hates them, ramps up the transphobia. That's how he became famous. That's the whole reason everyone knows who he is now, because he lied about Bill C-16 in Canada. He's a massive transphobe.
But in my view, palpably wrong. I feel that this is where we have to redress an imbalance around compassion. I feel that Elliot Page should be able to do whatever Elliot Page wants to do, and that my only role is to say, I recognise that I don't understand, and why would I understand? There are less obvious things that you could never understand about me. They're less evident and obvious, and for me, the basic principle of kindness and compassion is going to be my guide when dealing with Elliot Page.
I'm glad to know that there's a bar for Russell, you know, because he is probably, next to Steven Crowder, the largest one of these kind of I'm placating to a right-wing audience. Like, this is not Steven Crowder, this is Russell Brand. Brand is closer to a Jimmy Dore style. Like, I'm placating to a right-wing audience, and I'm obviously saying a lot of stories that please the right-wing audience, that align sometimes with my own beliefs, a deep-seated fear of pharmaceutical companies, a deep-seated fear of tech companies, a deep-seated fear of the elements of the Democratic Party that enhance either of these. That's basically the line. But I'm glad to know, because Jimmy Dore is a little bit transphobic too. He's not as bad as fucking Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro. He's one of those liberal, like, yeah, I'm an ally to a point kind of guys. He's like, yeah, I mean, I'm for trans rights, but gender affirming care is child abuse, women in sports, and also prisons. That's where Jimmy is. But it's nice to see that Russell at least is willing to do a almost bare minimum. You know, he's almost at a bare minimum, almost there, where he's just like, I just feel I'm not going to be a dick to Elliot Page. I'm coming from a place of love and enlightenment that I should not be a dick. I'm just amazing you came to that conclusion on your own, Russell. What a journey. I'm glad to have seen it happen.
And when posting something about Elliot Page, I do have recourse to the idea of, what do I want Elliot Page to feel? Happy, accepted. That's what I want Elliot Page to feel. And if there are aspects of that I don't understand, then I'm willing to take the hit.
When you think about your behavior on your YouTube channel, you're spending a lot of time in public criticism, and going after large corporations, going after those who are engaged in fascist collusion. And I think rightly so. I think that you're an extremely useful voice in that regard, and you're a critical voice. And, you're a critical comedic voice, which is a good kind of critical voice, and not exactly compassionate, right? Because you're also using creativity on the humor side to make your point, and you're doing it in a
you had to watch Russell Soy a little bit there. It's kind of funny he's just saying it out loud. You're useful. You're a useful idiot, Russell. Thank you for your service. It's good to have a lot of these right-wing beliefs repackaged in something that we could probably sell to people is leftist hippie stuff. You give enough of that leftist hippie vibe so that people will see all this anti-vax stuff and all this kind of like right-wing endorsing stuff, and basically the acceleration towards neo-fascism. We'll see all that, neo-reactionary movements all over this shit. But when they see you, we can be like, well, this is just a rational leftist. Yes, he calls himself an enlightened centrist.
A playful way, and I think that playful criticism is the hallmark of the master critic. And I think the Joker and the Jester in that regard are master critics. But that's not compassion, right? That's a different virtue. And often it's very, very...
How is this a response to what he said? He's like, I guess a point of disagreement we have is that I don't really understand why, if you are trying to give people advice, such as clean up your room, live your life better, you also are really heavily involving yourself in wanting to oppress trans people by telling Elliot Page what he can and cannot do, and you really go out of your way to do that. I mean, you kind of made this your new cause. It's the reason you're not allowed to log into Twitter anymore, because you just can't stop doing it. So I'm kind of concerned why, because at the end of the day, my personal view is just one of enlightened love, and that, we should just let him do whatever he wants. I don't see why it concerns you. You're not trans and you don't have trans kids. You don't really have any reason to be trying to control or oppress trans people. That's really weird and fucked up, Jordan. What do you have to say? well, you're kind of the jester, and you're an important one, and you're a useful one to our cause, and I do believe that that's the true sign of a Machiavellian genius, is what you've accomplished. It's a really incredible, astute thing that you've done. He's like, oh, thank you.
Very pointed. You do act as a social critic in many, many ways, and you do leaven it with comedy, and I think that's extraordinarily appropriate. It's part of what's given you such a broad voice, and that criticism is absolutely necessary. Now, let's speak about Elliot Page more specifically. So the first thing I'd like to bring up is the fact that in the UK, the Tavistock Clinic was recently closed, and that was the biggest clinic doing gender transformation surgery that operated in the British world. 1,000 of the 19,000 kids have now launched a lawsuit for medical malpractice. And when Elliot Page went online and showed off his or her new chest, she or he got 1.7 million Instagram likes. So then the question is...
you jelly, bro? So many likes. Oh, it was such a viral tweet. Yeah, she was on the cover. I can't stop. Oh, God.
Okay, compassion. Well, you know, I think Elliot Page stepped over the line from victim to perpetrator, because when girls...
Weird old man, what are you saying? What are you talking about? Oh, people are happy. People are comfortable being who they are. And it's like, oh, yep, you're the perpetrator. Let me guess, it's because you see the whole thing as a social contagion, because you, in all your understanding of the known universe, think that you can actually convince people to become trans, convince people to become cis, convince people to become straight, convince people to become gay. Yeah, good. It's nice to see that the revered and esteemed doctor is kind of still stuck in the conversion therapy way of thinking, you know, that so many right-wingers are as well. Because, come on, if turning people straight was as simple as indoctrinating them with heteronormative behavior, there would be no gay people. Because that's what everything is. Everything is heteronormative. Everywhere you go, you walk out of the house and you'll see a Gene ad where it's just a very handsome man and a very beautiful woman, and they're just having some kind of, you know, softcore porn sex, and then you see the burger advertisement, and then it's just a giant pair of boobas. And, you know, I guess I want burgers and something else. I'm confused. It's everything. Everything is like that. Like every mainstream film relationship. There's exceptions, and it's starting to become better, which is kind of nice, but it's still the vast majority of media is centered around this.
Hit puberty, their negative emotion spikes, and they develop bodily image problems because neurotic, and that would be negative emotional experience for women, is extremely tightly tied to body image. And so if you're a girl who is undergoing the hormonal changes that are going to elevate your negative emotion, which is what happens at puberty, you're going to be focused on body image. And if you're an unpopular girl and you're awkward socially, the probability that you're going to think something's wrong with your body is almost 100% if you're female.
So I can see what makes you angry about it. It's your analysis and it's your opinion that it's a powerful influencer, and it's going to lead people to make decisions that are going to be detrimental to their lives.
So the problem with women and women having bad body issues has a lot to do with the way social structures in society tries to enforce standards of beauty upon women, and also to associate women's value and worth with their looks. And he is a chief operator in that respect, as being a big old asshole that contributes to the problem. If you think women's only value comes from how hot they are, and he's done this out loud, he fucking, the first time he ever really got utterly embarrassed on Twitter was doing a like, yeah, would not smash, no, she's not beautiful, no amount of authoritarianism can convince me that I would smash. And then later on, everyone's like, that's really embarrassing, that was just a Sports Illustrated model cover, and yeah, it does not look like every other Sports Illustrated model, but at the same time, it's still beautiful, and that's weird, Jordan. Even your own fans were kind of like, yeah, you would, Jordan. Come on, let's come on, old man. Let's be real here. But then he released another one. He posted a different picture of like a bikini model, and I was like, oh well, okay, she's kind of fine, I guess. Wink. Like, what are you doing? You're just a gross old man posting horny on Maine. That's what you're using Twitter for right now. And then you were sad that you couldn't get back into your account because again, the hardcore transphobia, because you keep misgendering Elliot Page.
But the evident and palpable anger, I feel, diminishes your position because now anger is in the conversation. I think you offer a great deal that is valuable and necessary, but I feel beyond the value and necessity of honesty, authenticity, and information that is underwritten by data and experience, I feel that it creates more opposition to approach a matter like this in the manner that you have done. What are we going to anchor ourselves to ultimately, Jordan, navigating this space? Are we going to be participants in creating more and more ossified and oppositional camps, or are we going to create cartilage between us so that we can move between a room that Jordan Peterson is in and a room that Elliot Page is in and say, look, I believe in love, and I know it's complicated. I think you're beautiful and full of love. I really believe in that. And then when I sort of hear people being dismissive of you, it upsets me. It upsets me, and I see how you arm them.
So it sucks because you're never going to get Jordan Peterson in an unfriendly territory. He prefers safe spaces. That's why he drops out of, like, you know, potential debates with a lot of people. And you can see how he performs if he's actually put up into any kind of scrutiny. Zizek is a great example there. So he'll go on a show like Russell Brand. And Russell Brand is unfortunately so woefully out of his league in trying to call Jordan Peterson out on this one cause. Because, I mean, he's coming from a simple place of, like, I feel he read a couple Hallmark cards, and that's where he gets the majority of his ideology, or maybe he watched like a Christmas special where he's just like, yeah, I thought and believe that it's about love. It's all about love. So life is about love. So when you do something that doesn't have love, it makes me sad. I'm sad. So don't make me sad, Jordan. And it's like, well, it would be a lot better if you were capable of actually just doing some research on this topic so you could come well equipped and then actually destroy Jordan Peterson in this exact arena, because it's incredibly weird what him and all these other people are proposing. And it should be called out for what it is. Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, Libs of TikTok, Christopher Rufo, Andy No, Steven Crowder, every single fucking one of them, they are trying to put themselves into the healthcare of strangers' children. They want to involve themselves in the healthcare of strangers' children. They want to affect laws and push the discourse to such a point where the healthcare of strangers' kids, not kids who are their own, will be directly impacted because they hate trans people. That's what they're all trying to do. Every single one of them. This is something that is completely ascientific. It flies in the face of every major medical association in the United States. Every single one of them. The overwhelming amount of data when it comes to studies showing kids who transition, how it helps them, what the rates of detransitioning are, which are incredibly exceptionally low, and those who do detransition do so because of societal stigma is usually the cause. Study after study comes out showing this, backing this up. The data, if it was in the opposite direction by this point, would be overwhelming. It would be like the right uses the same 4 studies in everything they talk about. I don't know if you've watched the Steven Crowder takedown that Jangles Science Lab just did, but he's like, it's pretty weird that I'm doing a debunking of the false interpretation of these studies that Steven Crowder and all these other people are doing years later, when I've already done a debunking of these exact same studies, because it's the same 4. The Swedish study is the one they always parade around, and then when you actually get into the details of these studies, you look at how the methodology was either flawed or wrong, or why they are no longer accepted in academia. Like, they keep repeating the same 4 things because it's all they have, because in the opposite direction, as more information comes out, it's overwhelming. This is just, it's not even like, well, what side are you on? It's like, are you going to be in the camp that thinks it's okay to measure human skulls and base your decisions on that and say, well, you know, we have the science, we've measured the skulls, and based on the craniology, the phrenology, if you will, the white skulls happen to have better skull shapes than the black skulls, and so therefore I think that this is scientifically accurate to state that white people are superior to black people, and you're like, no, that's none of that is scientific. No, you've made that all up. I mean, I know it's all the rage in the 19th century, but still, this is not factually correct.
I feel that you arm them by sort of, in their language, dead naming Elliot Page. And I feel like why would you do that? It isn't necessary. It isn't necessary. Of course, it's the statistics you've cited about the Tavistock Clinic appear to speak for themselves. Is there a way that we can
See, this is why, because you'll get it on, like, if you walk away from this and you're someone who's a fan of Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson, the walk away is going to be like, oh, Jordan hurt Russell's feelings. Russell Brand just thinks you shouldn't be mean to people and hurt their feelings. That's all there is to it. But it is really, really scary. It's really scary that there is this kind of social contagion, indoctrination by the big trans ideology that is effectively trying to destroy kids' lives. And I'm really scared about that. But honestly, I feel bad for Russell because his feelings got hurt, you know?
Handle this that would be more akin to how we might imagine Christ would handle it. Otherwise, what's the point of Christianity? What's the point of Christianity if we're not going to embody Christ in our behavior?
Look, everybody who's operating in the online space that we're operating is trying to get the tone right? And you do that in part by paying attention to the audience, and you do that by trying to see how people are responding, and not in a way that's pandering, but in a way that's open and attentive. And it's a very difficult thing to get right. So the question you're asking is, well, when is anger appropriate? When is it not appropriate? When is it only inflammatory? That's a really hard question to answer, you know, to get that balance between judgment and encouraging acceptance right. I suppose part of the problem is we don't know exactly how emotions scale in an online environment, right? And definitely I found that even when I'm delivering very cutting material, as I just wrote an article for The Telegraph on the upcoming privation that Europe is going to be facing and the rest of the world in the winter.
Okay, so I'm looking this up because obviously a lot of the links are from right-wing publications about the NHS clinic. It is true that there is 100% a class action lawsuit that has been launched against the Tavistock Center. And my understanding of it from an initial glance is that in a country that is so fervently anti-trans, it's pervasive in the media. It's very popular in Britain to be extremely anti-trans. You have a situation where thousands and thousands of people were given gender affirming care, and they found a certain amount of them that were unhappy with it. The amount right now is not confirmed. The 1,000 patients is what the lawyers are saying. A lawyer for the firm bringing the action claims that at least 1,000 patients will join the lawsuit claiming clinical negligence against the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust. There's so much more to the story that needs to be uncovered. Like, we need to find out first, of these patients, is it the parents who are encouraging their children to go after them? Are all of these patients who had undergone gender affirming care? Are all of these patients, because by the way, there are people who are cis who also take puberty blockers, which is one of the primary cases for this entire thing. There's so much more to that story than simply saying, well, now I have definitive proof, and this is why I'm mad at he, Elliot Page. Oh God, I can't even remember the old name. How can I do this dead naming? Like, my evidence for this is, again, something that is undergoing not every major medical association in the United States. I'm going to base this off of the lawsuit. That's where I'm going with this one.
And I tried to read it as calmly as I possibly could, even though it's extremely cutting. And the calm delivery seems to alienate fewer people and bring people in more than an angry delivery without any shift in semantic content. The right principle is probably something like minimal necessary force in your personal interactions and minimal necessary emotion in your online behavior. But it's hard to know exactly what that means. And it's not as if I think I've done it perfectly. I mean, you move like this towards that central line that hopefully is moving uphill.
Watch entire episodes on demand for free at Rumble.
Yeah, obviously Russell Brand didn't really do anything there except say, I believe in love and you should be nice to people, which again, bare minimum. That's actually, that's not even the bare minimum. I think the bare minimum at this point, especially considering how bad things are going for trans people, would be to do a little bit of your own research, Russell, would be to actually, maybe Google some of this stuff and be like, okay, so Jordan Peterson's coming on the show. He's a massive transphobe who became famous for lying about a bill. He actually lied about that. He wasn't telling the truth. That bill was not about compelling the speech of everyone in Canada. 0 people have gone to jail because of that bill. It adds gender to the list of protected classes in Canada, so people cannot be fired from their jobs for their gender. People cannot be kicked out of homes for their gender, things like this. So that's to protect a marginalized class. Okay, so he just straight up lied about that. That it was, none of it was true. They were not forcing people to say Zer. That whole thing was made up. Okay, maybe I should do a little bit of research then. If I'm going to call Jordan Peterson out on this thing, rather than just coming with my feelings and being like, as an enlightened centrist, I want to emanate love to all people, and you didn't do that, and it made me feel sad. So now I'm sad. So what do you say about that? And then you're going to, of course, have Jordan Peterson be like, well, as you can see in the NHS, over 1,000 people of 19,000 patients are now going to be suing every single one of them because they don't like what happened to them, and they were convinced by Elliot Page. Every single one of them wouldn't have gotten puberty blockers if it weren't for Elliot Page, and I despise him. I mean her. I mean, oh God, mother. You know, this is exactly what you were going to be up against, Russell. You know, I think it's incredibly irresponsible of you to just come at this from a whole like, hey, fucking, but I want the fucking love. I just believe love for all things, you know, fucking, come on. Disappointing, but probably safe to say expected. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.